We have with us Mr. Dinesh Dua, CEO and Director of the company, to discuss the performance and, of course, a couple of important triggers going forward. Thanks for joining in, Mr. Dua. Let me start by getting some color on your earnings, which were out just the other day. The revenue was up 4.5%, a bit of a pressure on the EBITDA, margin decline of about 100 basis points year on year. If you could just tell us how different segments have done for you, and if you could break it down in terms of exports as well as domestic sales.
Thank you, Survi. Good morning to you. Thank you for getting me on your channel. We've had a very robust performance both on the top and the bottom line. And whatever you see in terms of EBITDA, what you said just now, is a net result of a little bit of a drag on our pharmaceutical operations. Our pharmaceutical operations have typically given us an EBITDA in excess of 16% quarter on quarter. And if you look at the overall EBITDA, it's in the range of about 15.7%. The drag which has come about, Surabhi, is primarily because of the second vertical, phytochemicals and guar gum, not operating up to expectations. We know the external reasons for that very well, which are global in nature. So having said that, if you look at standalone pharmaceutical operations, which is close So we have a dual advantage currently wherein the single ingredient formulations stay where they are, and we've been able to get the growth in the quarter under review, which is Q2. In Q3, we will have a double advantage of the fixed dose combination coming back into the fray. Having said that, the downside to some extent, as is universally known as demonetization, because of which the chemists and druggists have destocked their inventory. And that augurs very well for us, not for Q3, but Q4, wherein the restocking will take place. Because, you know, all the inventories that the chemists and druggists and retailers were sitting on is now under destocking. And obviously, when the stocks get over, they will start restocking in Q4 for us. So I expect Q3 to be reasonably all right. I think on similar lines as that of Q2. Q4, you know, should be another very, very excellent quarter for us. Overall, for the year, we should be able to register growth in the pharmaceutical vertical. We currently about 8% volumes up, and we level pegging it last year because we had a great last year. But we will go beyond that as we get closer to the quarter four, Prashant.
So that's in terms of volumes. Overall, can you give us a sense in terms of revenue as well, either for the second half, or if that's a little too dicey right now to predict, then the entire year, FY17, as we close it out?
Look, in overall at the company level, we should be at about close to 2,000 crores, which should be a growth of approximately about 12%. I mean, that's assuming that Q4 should do well. It's just a guidance. I mean, anything can happen depending on how the economy shapes up in terms of post-demonetization phase. And I hope and pray that everything fans out pretty well, and it should. So if that happens, then we should be closer to 2,000 crores. Having said that, I must qualify that pharmaceuticals will definitely register a 10% growth minimum, irrespective of the effects of the demonetization, Surabhi.
Mr. Dua, just very quickly, an update on your Baddi plant. If you could tell us what is happening with respect to the pending approval there from the US FDA.
So we'll be very happy to inform you that we've yet again got our European approval through Infarmed, which is the Ministry of Health Portugal. So our contract manufacturing initiative is getting far more strengthened than in the past with this new approval. All the molecules, both in the injectable space as well as in the oral space, stand approved. We also have a very big upside in the Latin American market, where the results will get reflected in 17-18 and 18-19. Now coming to the US, which is the most critical piece of this formulation facility in Baddi, we were inspected, if you remember, Surabhi, in 2014 for 8 ANDAs, out of which 2 were oral molecules, the tablets, where there were absolutely no observations. But on the injectable front, we had 5 observations, 2 major and 3 minor. We submitted our response to the US FDA authorities. They took their own time, about a year, to come back to us. And during the con call, which was a very comprehensive con call, they suggested to us that we deploy the services of a US FDA accredited third party to audit the facility from sterile injectable perspective. Because there's been a bit of a change in the guidelines. The bar has been upped significantly. So they want a revalidation from accredited third party auditor from the US to ensure that we are in a position to cater to the requirements of injectables in the US, which is a very sensitive part, mind you.
Sure.
And we are currently going through that phase. Hopefully the report would be submitted by March. And hopefully, if all goes well, God bless, we should be through by, we should be through in the market by the end of 2000.
Falling a little short on time, sir, but got it. That's the critical part, that March is hopefully when we should get some further updates on what the US FDA has to say on Baddi. Thanks for joining in. We need to get into a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about the market fundamentals.